Hey guys, what's going on? Anime Philosopher here, and today I'm going to be doing another one of my philosophy videos. So, I'm super excited. Like I said last time, I love doing these philosophy videos. So, I have two segments of philosophy. Last time we did the who is, or in last time's case, who are the Don Quixote family. But this time I'm going to do the other segment, which is what can we learn from? And when I say that, I mean, what can we learn from entire series? So I'm looking at a whole show, everything encompassed, and I'm going to talk about the details of it and what I think that we can really take away from certain shows to learn about the world around us, because that's what philosophy is. It's learning about the world around us. So, without taking too much time on the explanation, I'm going to jump right into it. And today, I'm doing what can we learn from Death Note? So, if you guys have ever seen Death Note, I hope you have. Death Note is one of my favorite anime. I mean, I'm going to say that about a lot of anime. But it was one of the first, it was certainly the first kind of darker anime that I ever got into, one that made you think a lot more. It was certainly one of the first, I mean, the very first thing I ever got into was Dragon Ball Z. It doesn't quite make you think a whole lot. But Death Note is definitely darker. It definitely does make you think more. So, I'm excited to do this. So, let's just start talking about it. The premise of Death Note is a kid, a high schooler at the time, at the beginning, a genius high schooler, like Yagami, he is a genius, gets a notebook of death. And what this is you write someone's name in it, and 40 seconds later, that person, while you picture their face, and 40 seconds later, that person will die of a heart attack. You can write conditions and times in there to change how they die in different ways. But as long as you have their name and their face, you can pretty much kill them in whatever way you want. Now, you can't, if their name is in the book, they're gonna die. But you pretty much kill them however you want. So, it's the story of this high school kid who gets this book and decides he's going to eradicate criminals. He's going to kill all the criminals on the planet. He's going to reform the world and make the world a better place. Now, he's opposed by this detective who goes by the codename of L, because it's obviously illegal to kill people, and people are starting to realize someone is in charge of these killings, someone's doing this to people. So L, the greatest detective in the world, a genius in his own right, is going to go after Light Yagami, or Kira, as his name was shown. To the public, he was called Kira. He's going to go after Kira. He's going to find him. And so the whole show is this struggle between these two. And that's the first thing I want to look at, is the struggle between Kira, or Light Yagami, and L, or, well, I won't say his name because it's not like it's a plot point, but it's part of L, so I'm not going to say his name. But between Light and L, I want to look at that struggle. And what do we see in this struggle? Well, from the very first time that these two really meet and really clash, they are, which is, I would say, the tennis match. We can see how determined they both are, and we get a little foreshadowing. By the way, if you haven't seen Death Note, if you haven't read Death Note, watched it or read it, either or, please, I mean, I'm going to throw out some spoilers. If you're okay with spoilers, I'm one that actually is okay with spoilers, but if you're not okay with spoilers, get out of here, because I'm definitely going to spoil things in Death Note for you, but, starting right now, but, it definitely, that tennis match, shows us how this is going to go. These two are neck and neck, and in the end, who wins? Light wins. Kira wins. Which is disturbing, but, everybody swoops in that. This is just a tennis match. It has nothing to do with life. Well, we see these two as two of the most intellectually perfect beings that could exist. I mean, Light and L are the top of their game. But let's look at them both. They're the smartest people in this world, by far, I would say. No questions asked. But, what about their personality is different? And I would say it's that they're both darker. Being intelligent has actually, I would say, made both Light and L more realist. and it has a darker personality. So I'm not saying intelligence is bad, I mean by any means. Obviously intelligence is a good thing, but I will say that they both have this darker outlook on life. So that's something to keep in mind when you're talking about this show, because really it does show, this immense amount of intelligence, which is a crazy great gift that these two have, does put life into a different perspective than those of us who maybe don't have super incredible intelligence, and we're less realists because we don't have that. So that's the first point I want to make about how in the show they paint the intelligent characters as darker, and even though these two characters are on different sides, Light obviously trying to kill the criminals, Elle trying to obviously find out who Kira is, so they're obviously on different sides, but they are very, very similar. Elle even quotes that Light is his only friend, his first real friend, because they are on the same level. So that's something to keep in mind about how they're very similar characters, and the only thing that really is separating them from truly working together and being an unstoppable force together is these two different sides that they're on, which shows me something. And I'm going to get into that in this next facet of the show that I'm going to talk about, which is Light's descent. When we first see Light, he's a normal college or high school student, and he is bored out of his mind. He's too smart for everything, and he's daydreaming, looking out the window, the classic anime thing. I'm sitting in the back of the class looking out the window, and the notebook falls, and he tests out the notebook, and originally he's like vomiting in that alleyway after he kills the second guy, like, holy crap, I killed 2 people. He's like, he can't take it, but then he snaps, and he goes, no, I'm going to use this to kill the criminals and to make the world a better place. So that's what he sets out to do, obviously. And obviously if you've seen the show, he does pretty well in that pursuit. Now, what we have to think about here is what happened to him. And I think this is one of the biggest things in this show, is how power corrupts people. This is the focal point of, I think, Death Note, is power is what corrupts people. It's not the people. Because if we look at the relationship between Elle and Light, and how similar they are as people, even though they're on 2 different sides, and doing 2 very different things, and believing that justice is very different, we see that they're very similar people. And when Light loses his memory of the Death Note, we see how he comes back, and he's like, wow, Kira is a bad guy, he is wrong, and I have to catch him. We see how he does that, and how he becomes a good guy. For that little bit that he doesn't have memories of the Death Note, he becomes a really good guy. Which, to me, says that Elle could have become Kira. And anyone with this power can be turned bad. And Soichiro Yagami, who is Light Yagami's dad, says that, it quotes that the problem and the evil is the power to kill. The notebook is the evil. Kira isn't. He is a victim of the evil just as much as the criminals who are dying are. So that's my big focal point, and I'll come back a little bit to that later, because I got 2 more points that I want to talk about. One, since I just talked about Soichiro Yagami, I want to get back into that. The relationship between Soichiro Yagami and Matsuda, and I'm sorry, I forget, Toto Matsuda, got it, his first name. But Soichiro is a great detective. He is a great man. He's the poster child for goodness. And we can see this in his stark contrast to Elle. This is why I say that Elle and Light are so similar, because Soichiro is the good cop. He is the good guy. He really wants to help people, and he wants to save lives, and he'll do whatever he has to do that. But within justice, Soichiro cares about that. So he even actually, he didn't fully use the Death Note by the end, but he actually used almost used the Death Note to stop Mello later on in the series. So, even someone who was about to use that power, still, he retains all of his goodness. I believe he retains it all. I don't think Soichiro Yagami dips down practically at all. He makes a deal for the eyes, shortening his own lifespan, and he actually dies in the show. And he dies believing that Light wasn't Kira. And what does this say? This says that simple-mindedness, that he was a good guy striving to be good, that naivety is blissfulness. He didn't know that Light was Kira. He never would know. And he died thinking he wasn't Kira. And he would have said, I believe, if we had like some kind of ghost thing going on, which is totally out of character for Death Note, but I believe he would have said he died happy and his life was good. Because of the fact that his son wasn't Kira and he lived a good life and helped a lot of people. Good. Now let's talk about Matsuda. Matsuda is a moron for most of the series. I gotta say, I love Matsuda, though. He's one of my favorite characters in the series because he's a moron, because he's so simple-minded. But he wants to be like Soichiro Yagami, and Soichiro is his, like, idol. I mean, he wants to be that detective. He wants to be that cop, for sure. No doubts, no questions asked there. I know that Matsuda's like that. So, in the end, when Matsuda finds out that Light is Kira, he flips. You know, Kira, you pretty much killed your own dad. And I would be mad too. I mean, come on. I feel any rational person is mad at that point. But his idol died believing in his heart that his son was clear. But Matsuda, he knows now. And he was so mad. I mean, he pulled the gun out and his tears running down his face, shooting at Light. Hit Light a couple times. I mean, it was devastating. So, what that says to me is that Matsuda, although simple, would eventually become Soichiro Yagami. And he would take his place, and we see that, yeah, he's still stupid by the end, but he's not the low man on the totem pole anymore. By the end, when they're having a new case, they get this other guy in who replaces him as the low man, the intern kind of character. But Matsuda will become Soichiro Yagami. He'll get the experience, and he'll fight crime, just like who his actual father is. I know that they're not related at all, but to be honest, Soichiro Yagami is Matsuda's, like, father figure, for sure. Much more than Light's father figure. I mean, Light doesn't have a father figure. He calls himself God, so any man who calls himself God probably doesn't have a father figure. So that's what I wanted to talk about with them. Now, there's another thing that I want to talk about before I touch on the end of this a little bit, and that's Nier and Mello. And this is something that really gets to me, that really got to me, because Nier and Mello take over this investigation after L dies. So, with that, they are the new L. They take his place, and together they have to be the new L. But they hate each other, so they wouldn't ever work together, so they don't. But they're not, I don't believe that Nier or Mello individually was as smart as L was. And I certainly don't think that they could catch Kira. Because Kira, we know, is as smart as L. We know that Light and L were equals in that. If not, that Light was smarter than L, because in the end he ended up beating L. But Nier and Mello together were better than L, and certainly better than Light. Now, how does he end up caught? How does he end up getting caught? A lot of people say Nier. Nier did it. Nier set up the plan, and I say yes. But he would have screwed up if it wasn't for Mello. And this is why these two characters had to work together to be better than L, better than their predecessor. Because without Mello, Nier would be dead. Mello took care of Takeda. And without Mello taking care of Takeda, Nier would be dead. Because Mikami and the Light would have been able to communicate, and they would have been able to fix the problem, before it came down to the wire. And Nier says that without Mello, that together they can stand above L. But without Mello, he would have died. And I think that's very important. And one of the central focuses of the show could be that, hey, he needed his counterpart. He needed the other guy. And Mello knew, and Mello made a sacrifice so that Nier could survive. And that to me shows that Mello and Nier are brothers. They are definitely brothers, and they are definitely together. Actually, originally in the show, the author of the show, I forget his name now, but I have seen that he originally intended for these two to be like L's sons. But that idea was scrapped later on. But that's what I think about Mello and Nier. I definitely think that those two are strong characters, but that need to be together. Because it shows that you can't do everything on your own, which I think is a vital part of life. So now, right before I end this video, I want to kind of wrap up with going back to what I think the main point is, and that's that power corrupts people. Look at life. Look at famous people, people who are in positions of authority, and look what happens. They think that they own everything, that they own the world. They become spoiled brats. And what happens when you're a spoiled brat? You complain and you whine about everything, and you get your way. And that power makes you a worse and worse person because you have that power. And that's what Death Note is trying to show us, that as Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And while that's the message in Spider-Man, I believe it's also the message of Death Note, that with great power, with this power of death, this power to reform the world or destroy it, comes great responsibility. And that even those who try very hard to contain it probably will fail, because power corrupts. Absolutely. So I think that's something that we can look for in our own lives, to keep ourselves in check if we are in positions above other people, to make sure that we're not taking advantage of power like Light did, and certainly not calling ourselves God or going to the extent of Light Yagami, but making sure that in our lives we are not taking advantage of that power that we may have. And if you don't have power, to recognize and see in society how positions of power can corrupt people. So that's what I think Death Note's all about. Guys, thank you so much for listening to me and hearing me out. Like I said, these are my favorite videos. I love doing philosophy videos. That's why I call myself the Anime Philosopher. But, so, with that being said, if you liked anything I had to say, please like this video. And if you want to further discuss this, if you have other ideas about maybe something else that Death Note could teach you, please leave a comment. I would love to see your guys' ideas and maybe respond to you and get something going, maybe even another video out of this. But guys, until next time, this is the Anime Philosopher signing off.